Hey up! Right, here we are, Volume 2 of The Mules' Day Out. In Volume 1 I left you after my little trip along the Road of Stones, setting off for Ribblehead, and in between I published a virtual ride from Aysgarth through to Hawes, and then on the fantastic road from Hawes up to Ribblehead itself. Now, when I was a kid, or even as a younger adult, Ribblehead was just a monument that I passed on my way somewhere. Place of interest that I never really gave much thought to. Until about 5 or 6 years ago. You see, ITV, that's independent television here in the UK, broadcast a period drama called Jericho. Now, this was clearly a pretty lavish production, a lot of money had been spent on it, but it never really reached its true potential. Don't get me wrong, it is very watchable, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would suggest you give it a try. But it was a bit predictable, and it was clear to me anyway that some of the actors had been chosen because of the popularity on TV at that time, rather than their ability to portray the characters that they were playing. And in fact, it was axed after the first season. But what intrigued me about it was the subject matter, where it was set. It centred around a series of characters, workers that lived in a shanty town that housed the workers that built a viaduct. A fictitious shanty town called Jericho, but it was inspired by and based upon actual events that happened at Ribblehead back in the 1870s. And when I actually looked into it, fact, for me anyway, was far more interesting and intriguing than the fiction. Ribblehead, for the hapless people that worked there, was tantamount to purgatory. The Settle to Carlisle railway line was the last major line built in England back in the 1800s. It navigates across a very desolate and rugged landscape, which created huge challenges for the railway company that built the line. You see, Yorkshire doesn't have that many flat places. For the most part, you're either going up a hill or you're coming down a hill, and this Ribble Valley was a major obstacle. Originally, the viaduct was intended to have 18 arches, but after construction it commenced, and it was soon realised that would have to be expanded to 24 arches. It's built from huge blocks of stone, and back in the 1870s there wasn't an awful lot of mechanical assistance to help with construction. And for the most part, this colossal structure was built using nothing more than blood, sweat and muscle. For the moment, and I hope it doesn't last much longer, we're living in the age of wokery. And I'm frequently attacked on this channel by various people from various different countries, passing derogatory comments about imperialist UK, white privilege, and how my nation has been responsible for exploiting other nations in the past. But like most woke narratives, the presented information and disclosures are weighted to give a very specific story, not necessarily the truth. Because the truth is, those dastardly deeds of the past, and indeed a lot of crimes against humanity, were perpetrated by the wealthy elite, the descendants of whom are the wokists of today. And the average man on the street, my ancestors, and the ancestors of 90% of the people that watch my videos, the labourer, the soldier, the sailor, were every bit as exploited and mistreated as those people that cry foul. And what happened here at Ribblehead during the building of this viaduct is a prime example, just one little drama that was playing out all over this country and had been for centuries. Work commenced on this viaduct in 1870, 150 years ago, and continued for about 6 years. Now, the records show that at any one time during the construction there were 2,300 workers actively involved in construction. That's labourers, masons, carpenters, and whatever other professions were required. And at the end of the working day, they couldn't just jump in the car and go home until the next day. It's a desolate place, so they had to stay on site. And of course they didn't have cars because they didn't exist. So not one but 3 shanty towns grew up around the viaduct, the remnants of which are still there, buried just under the surface of the moors somewhere. Wages were poor by even those days' standards, and for the most part it was mere subsistence for these workers. These shanty towns all had names: Battywife's Hole, make of that what you will, Sebastopol and Belgravia. And apart from the hard and horrendous working conditions, these, for want of a better word, dwellings were at best wooden shacks and at worst mere tents made from a heavy-duty canvas. Now, these dwellings weren't free, they were owned by the rail company, and the workers were charged not just for their accommodation but for the food. And by the time these expenses had been deducted from the wages, there was very little left. So these workers couldn't save up and then move along to a better job. They were virtual prisoners, and as a result of that, an entire infrastructure grew up around them: laundries, alehouses, brothels, blacksmiths for repairing the tools. Because the company didn't provide those, you had to buy them yourself. So businesses of all kinds grew up in these shanty towns to support these workers. Some private businesses, but many owned by the company. It's estimated that in its heyday there was a total population in these 3 towns of around 4,000 people. And when it was all over, those workers that survived, because not all did, walked away with little more than the tools they brought with them and the clothes on their backs. Health and safety didn't exist, and it's recorded that over 100 men died in construction accidents. And the local parish registry in the nearest village, which is about 10 miles away, records a total of 200 deaths of men, women and children through accidents, smallpox and even murder, all of which were products of the exploitative, dangerous and squalid conditions these people lived under. Many people a year visit Ribblehead Viaducts, and they see it as a symbol of Victorian British engineering achievement. I used to see it that way, but when I look at it now, I see a lasting epitaph to the exploitation of the common British worker. Now, I hadn't had a chance to check the mule over since its ordeal on the Road of Stones. I was convinced there was going to be some damage and some bits hanging off, but was relieved to find she was actually totally undamaged. Even the sump guards seemed relatively unscathed, and that Lomo luggage had well and truly lived up to its reputation despite the battering it had taken, and the weight it was carrying, it was like new. By now, time was running short and I had to make my way up to the Green Dragon Inn at Hardraw. But there were 3 very pleasant chaps on their vintage British Iron, a Triumph Daytona, a Norton Commando and a rather unique BSA Special Edition, which I have to admit I don't really know what it was. And I couldn't resist the urge to just hang back, listen to them start the motorcycles up and see them off on the way. Strike one. rode the mule back to Hawes the way that I came, and from Hawes it's literally a 4, maybe 5 minute journey up the side of the valley to Hardraw and the Green Dragon Inn. Now, I reckon it's all down to the pandemic and to Brexit, but the Yorkshire Dales were busier than I've ever seen them. I'd left it a little bit late to book accommodation, and then when it came to it, I struggled to get in anywhere. The Green Dragon Inn at Hardraw is, of course, the home of the Hardraw Force, England's highest single drop waterfall. And you may remember that I camped here in a previous video about 4 years ago. Now, it wasn't my first choice because when I looked at reviews online, in the interim it's gained a very bad reputation. Since I was last here, the current owners had retired. They'd been running it since the 1970s and they'd had enough. I know the place was up for sale for some time, but eventually they decided to hang on to it but lease it out. And unfortunately, the first tenants that came along didn't treat the place or the customers very well. They ran this historic 13th century building into the ground along with the goodwill of its customers. And eventually, I believe, it required legal action to actually get them out. A lovely couple have now taken over the tenancy since April, and they're trying the hardest to bring the Green Dragon's reputation back to where it deserves to be. Hardraw itself is a gorgeous chocolate box Yorkshire village, and the Green Dragon itself maintains most of its period charm. It's an old and historic building. Now, while I was there, I bumped into a lovely young couple, Ian Nightingale and his lovely partner. Now, Ian introduced himself to me and explained that he was actually one of my viewers and that he'd recognised me from my videos. It does happen from time to time. And get this is the part that really blew my mind. He'd come up with his partner all the way from London to experience Hardraw and the Green Dragon, all because of that video that I made 4 years ago. Now, this got me thinking, so the following morning I had a word with the landlord and landlady, Chris and Anne, both motorcycle friendly people, and we came up with a cunning plan. In fact, a plan so cunning you could curl your eyelashes with it. What if next year the Green Dragon Inn became host to an annual motorcycle event? Now, I'm not usually very good at ideas like this, so I'll just talk and we'll see what comes out. The Green Dragon Inn itself has possible accommodation for up to 60 people. Now, quite a bit of that is bunk rooms, but they do have some luxury accommodation as well. Then right next door, there is a campsite which can accommodate at a push up to 300 people. And Chris and Anne reckon that if that wasn't enough, There are also some local bed and breakfasts and hotels that would be willing to help out with accommodation. Now, there's talk of a hog roast or barbecue of some sort, and live music. It's a bit of a work in progress. We're looking to possibly hold this in July or August 2022. So please, if that's something that you think might be of interest to you, let me know in the comments section. I'm just trying to gauge what the interest might be. Nothing's binding, it's purely just to get an idea of interest. Then the project can evolve from there. Now, in the meantime, it was painfully clear to me that Chris and Anne were trying their hardest to get this business back up and running again. They were putting their heart and soul into it. And I'd like to do my bit to help them do that if I can. So, if you're looking for a weekend away with your missus, your partner, or on your own, whether you're on your bike or you're driving a car, consider the Green Dragon at Hardraw. Place is clean and tidy, it has a wonderful atmosphere, and the staff are efficient and friendly. The prices weren't too bad either. I'll leave the telephone number for the Green Dragon in the video description down below. Ask for Chris or Anne and tell them Uncle Stu sent you. I absolutely guarantee it will be one of the most enjoyable stays you've ever had anywhere. And of course, the Green Dragon Inn is open all year round. I always think the Yorkshire Dales look fantastic in winter and there's fewer people around. Right, look at the time. That's got to be it for this video. The third and final volume of the Mules Day Out coming next Friday, where we'll take a look at the waterfall and then go for a ride over Jeremy Clarkson's favourite stretch of English road. Once again, thank you so much for watching this and my other videos. I really do appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you next Wednesday. So until then, please ride safely, and I'll see you soon.